I'm your host, Sarah, and with me, as always, is the wonderful, the amazing Akamaru Red.
Hello everyone, how are you doing? Hope we're connected. We're online. I think so. I just
Yeah,
see our beautiful faces on Outlet Sky. What's up,
se-
everyone?
seems like it's working. Today we're doing the cast a little differently than we normally do, and it seems like everything's working, and that is great. So, this week we got a whole lot of Take Two going on. This week it seems like it's just been Take Two week.
I love it.
Uh, Almost all the streamers that have been streaming Take Two. It's just everyone's getting ready for NGE.
I love it. For two reasons. Mainly, I started streaming Shadowverse like back in the day, Darkness Evolved with Take Two. It was back in the season where they actually gave Darkness Evolved tickets in Take Two, and I pulled like six legendaries in a row out of those packs. But anyways, the second reason is because it's as if playing a lot of Take Two makes you a better Take Two player. It's kind of interesting because people think you can grind Take Two and become better at it, but it's actually I don't think it is something like that. I think you need to study. You need to analyze a lot of what the cards do. You can't really like grind 100 Take Two runs and become good at the game. You can do that with instructed. You can read the meta by that doing that.
It A lot of it's been like just learning all the different cards that I could be putting in my deck and what they could be changing in my deck and how it operates.
Yeah, it's a lot of one-offs. Each single card that you pick has to have substantial value on its own. You cannot be, oh, this card ramps me as a dragon player. I want to ramp it. No, you need to. Is that card single-handedly good enough? What I like to do is I like to imagine, what if I have a hand with no cards, and that is the only card that I have? Is that a good card? Will that help me? If it's not, then I I probably don't want to be playing it.
So I've been playing a good amount of Take Two this week. I assume you have been too. I'm curious, what has been your favorite class to be playing so far in this meta?
Dragoncraft, just because I come from a time where Dragoncraft was garbage, trash tier. Now everyone was telling me, oh, it's broken, it's busted, so I give it a try, and so far so good. I had two runs. One was 4-1. I am currently 3-0 with a beautiful Sybil and two Canyons and two, what's the name of that? Basilisk Rider. People told me that that's a really good card. Hello, Zero Fine. What's up?
What's up, Zero Fine? That card's a bit of a pain in the butt to deal with. It's like two Bane units, and just sometimes it gets some more than favorable trades, or trades that are more favorable than you'd want them to be.
Yeah, it feels like the Prince Catacombs of Take Two, because it's this really sticky card that's really hard to deal with, and contrary to Prince Catacombs, you don't actually need a board to have it.
I've been playing my favorite class to draft this so far this week has been Swordcraft. I got earlier this week I had a deck that had an Into the Looking Glass and I had the 3 mana 2/3 that the Rabbit Ear attendant. And every time I played it, I had the Looking Glass on it and I would draw extra cards because of it.
Oh yeah, it procs on itself, right? That is
Hmm.
a really sweet combo. That is like a Witch of Sweets. That's also a very valuable card. I don't know if you know that one, Witch of Sweets. The Runecraft 2/2 follower.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, Runecraft isn't that good because of all the other spell boost synergy cards. But Witch of Sweets, that's a valuable card. Every card that cycles itself is very strong because Take Two is a lot about how many cards you spend, how many cards you kill, how many 1 for 2s you do. So if you cycle a card, you're never going down. Like cards like Dragon Summoner, like Mysterious Grimoire, those cards are just cycling themselves. They're very valuable, even if they're not very good on stats and don't trade very favorably. Like getting ahead on cards is you usually gonna get a way to recover tempo if you draft removal cards. So I guess we can break Take Two, and we're gonna break it down today. I guess we could talk about three different aspects. I think, unless you want to add something
Hmm.
else. But I like. We can talk about the good tempo cards, which are the evil cards, the ones that allow you to recover the lost tempo. We can talk about card
Hmm.
advantage, the 1 for 2s, and I guess we can talk about the bombs. So I want to know your opinion. Out of these three
Hmm.
categories, I want you to tell me what's your favorite on each one. So let's start with what's your favorite tempo card, or I get evolve card, something that you really like to evolve when going second.
My favorite my favorite tempo card. Well, you can't actually get Priest of the Cudgel in Arena, so I wouldn't be able to say that one.
From your experience,
As
from the
far
decks you played, which one was the favorite? Your favorite card to evolve?
the Macy is pretty good
Oh
if you're
yeah.
able to get that combo off. Um, I've been liking what's it called? I'm blanking on all my card names today.
You can tell
The
the stats. People will probably recognize it.
the 5 mana 2/2 summons the 1/2 or summons the 2/1
What class?
commander sword.
Luminous Mage.
Yeah, Luminous Mage, that one.
Oh, that's a very strong card.
Yeah, Luminous Mage is real good.
I've had decks with I've had 1-for-1. I remember this one was epic. Me and my opponent on our game there were 13 evolves. So I was 4-0. That was the last game. I played against a guy that had 3 Luminous Mages and an Olivia. And I had this very grindy deck that didn't require a lot of evos with Genos and Luminous Mage. And we evolved
Hmm.
I evolved 5 times, he evolved 8 times. So you can imagine that those ridiculous games. You never see those games in constructed, so that's a that's
That's a really
that's a
long
lot of
game.
fun. A card that I love evolving is Rahab, just because it
Hmm.
has so much health that you can almost guarantee that your opponent is gonna have an awkward turn. Also, a very strong card to evolve is Tina. Um, I don't think Tina is in the format. I haven't studied the ban list yet. I gotta do that just because sometimes you need to play around some cards, but I never play around golds, so I don't not sure if Tina is in. I love to evolve Tina. Dragon Warrior is also a very good card to evolve. Any card that deals damage, I think, is good. We had
I've evolved a good amount of Spinarias this week,
oh
and that's a pretty strong one to evolve.
yeah. Well, we had some experiences with Sora. Do you want to talk about that one? we
Oh yeah. So Sora is a Shadowcraft card. She's a 3 mana 2/3, and when she evolves, she says deal 1 damage to 2 random enemies. So we didn't quite know how it would work on a follower that had if there was one follower in play with 2 HP.
Now we know.
And yeah, it does not work the way you want it to. It'll only deal 1 damage.
The different targets,
But
yeah.
hmm
Tea Time. I remember Tea Time. That's also a very strong card. Because those cards allow you to recover the board state. They also allow you to 2-for-1, which comes to the next category. Mr. Zero, which card is the most valuable for you? Which one gives you the more value? I think.
well, I don't know if this is the most, but something like a Scarlet Saber, it's really nice. It gains you some HP, removes something, and puts a nice follower in play.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, Sabrur, and actually, when you think blood, you see a lot of those cards. There's Big Knuckle Bodyguard, removes actually quite strong. It can remove something that your opponent evolves, and you know how there's the sticky minions that survive a trade like 5/3s, 5/2s.
Hmm.
Like Big Knuckle Bodyguard is so strong against those cards. Also, Groof. Groof is one of my favorite
Yeah,
cards. It's insane.
Gruff is really nice.
You can sometimes even evolve Groof and you don't even feel bad, even though he has Rush. You just get a 5/7 out of like nothing for just an Evo.
It's nice to know in like a longer game to know that you have a Gruff that you can lean on to kind of recoup an Evo for you in the late
Hell
game.
yeah, Rush is probably the strongest mechanic. It's a mechanic that is very unique to Shadowverse when you think about Evos and the Rush mechanic, the ability to attack immediately without attacking face. That is the uniqueness of that mechanic. And I think having Rush in Arena is even more valuable, just because you mentioned it. It comes to a point where the game has no Evo points. You spend them really fast, and then from turns 8 to 10, the games haven't finished yet because your opponent is still trying to control the board state and so are you. So the games take longer. Odile, that's a very good example too.
Yeah. And then, so the last category you were talking about were bombs, and everyone likes bombs, right?
Yeah, that's why we play Take Two to see the first two cards and the last two cards. We all want the Bahamut's, the Israfils. Unfortunately, Sponge Pedro Bahamut is not on the format anymore. Cry tears. So,
So
which ones do you think are the bombs?
first one that comes to mind is Israfil. I've drafted quite a bit of Israfils this week. She is incredible. She does everything you want a card to do. She gains you HP, she removes the board, and she's big.
That actually, that's a good card to evolve as well. Holding your
Hmm.
EOS for that card. We had a lot of fun. For those of you that don't know, we played me, Teji, and Zero. We played a couple of Take Two games, and we had an Israfil, and all the games we we drew Israfil and evolved it. We won them 4-1, but we lost the one that we didn't draw it fast enough, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, the last game we lost to Arthurian Light off of a treasure map.
Oh, talking about treasure map. Have you felt the pleasure of playing against any class that's not Shadow with Grave Desecration? Have you had that pleasure?
I have I have played a Grave Desecration in Forest, and that was very nice.
That is so disgusting. Because classes that have no way to use Necromancy now have get rewarded for playing Shadowverse for just suiciding fairies that just become zombies with Storm.
It's real strong. Grave Desecration is a pretty powerful card.
It's like you got a roach uh every other turn, right? I
Hmm.
believe that's the expression. Every other turn you get a Rhinoceros roach for free. That's balanced.
Well, you can once you get into the late game, you can proc that thing every turn.
Yeah. Oh my god. If you have enough fairy generators, you just high roll of that treasure map and you just win the game. Speaking of an underwhelming class for me, I don't know if that is your opinion, but how do you feel about Portalcraft?
Um, I've been told Portalcraft is a strong craft. Every time I draft it, I go like 2-3 or 3-2, and I haven't been too impressed with it.
Yeah, it's I think there's a lot of value on it, but it just it lacks a way to finish the game. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but like there's no definite win conditions in Take Two, but there's always cards that, like you mentioned, Israfil, like Canyon of the Dragons, like anything that's big enough, that like Elephant, the Mammoth. Actually, people laugh about it, but sometimes you just win the game because at that point there's no more evos. That big fat body just slams them for seven twice, and you win the game. But like Portalcraft doesn't have that big follower. The best
It's
example. Sorry, go ahead.
it's got the it's not exactly a finisher, but the Iron Forged Fighter. I think it's a 4 mana 4/3, and it puts two of the Radiant artifacts in your deck. And I feel like you kind of want some of those to close the game out with
Yeah,
Portal.
that's probably the best artifact. The worst would be probably the ancient artifact, the one with rush.
Hmm.
When you talk about constructed, the rush artifact is probably the more valuable one because it drags the game. But when you think about Take Two, you're spending a card for removing something, or you're just one for oneing. You're not advancing your win condition because that will never trade and survive, right? So it always dies. So at most will be like a one for one, and you're not dragging the games for Sephiras or for anything else, and you're actually physically drawing the 3-1 rush. So
Yeah, in constructed you can like put more card draw in your deck, but in Take Two you're not guaranteed all the card draw
yeah,
to make up for drawing the 3/1
yeah,
rush.
that's the problem I have with. I was gonna say Magna Legacy is a good example of a winning card, but it's so hard to make it work. I've had three drafts with Magna Legacy, and it's so clunky. Like most of my Magna Legacies were doing like 2 damage AoE, which is fine, but it's not what you see in constructed, right? You see like 7 damage, like 8 damage. It's
Most of the Magna Legacies I've seen played against me hit for 2 as
yeah,
well.
because it's hard to draw artifacts and draw Magna Legacy and actually get it to work. Because putting artifacts in your deck also pollutes your draw step.
I've run into a couple Chronoses this week. Have you run into
A
that card this
lot.
week
Like
much?
people just love to play. I think it makes the game fun. That's why people draft it, probably for the fun moments.
It
It's insane.
it's so interesting. I've seen so many games be won or decided by the fatigue mechanic of Chronos.
Hey, that's exactly right. When they play it, I'm like, oh, damn. Do I clock first or does my opponent clock first? So if he has a four, I actually left. I believe it was a 5-1 or something. Actually, I played a ward and I actually left the five. No, it had 3 health, I believe. So I actually left it alive because all my followers only had 2 attack. So instead of playing something big, I actually played something small, and he had no way to suicide it, and it was fun because you would deck out the next game. It definitely opens up new win conditions.
I was playing a control sword and I was 4-0, and the last round I played against somebody and he played a Chronos on me, and I had two Hero of Antiquities and two Axe
Oh
Destroyers, and
damn.
I couldn't do anything, and I was gonna die to the deck out.
Yeah, I've never lost to deck out, except when I played Deus Ex. That was the only way. The first time I was trying to make it work, but it was a hell of a fun game though. Like controlling all the resonance and I'm like, what do I play now? And I needed to suicide one of my artifacts, and my opponent did the brilliant move of just passing. It just passed, and I'm like, oh fuck, I lost. Because like because of that, Portal doesn't have a big finisher. There's not like a strong storm follower. So he's like, I can take 10. I don't care. I have 15 health. You're not gonna kill me. So he just passed, and I lost to fatigue.
So, so you were saying that you think Dragon is one of the stronger classes in Take Two?
Yeah, look to it. I'm expecting a lot of dragon coming to this weekend, just because even if it's not the strongest, we have the discords. We talk a lot about with other players, and definitely what I'm reading the most is dragon to be one of the strongest. There's 3 main cards to make people believe it's one of the strongest, and it's Canyon of the Dragons. The second one is the Basilisk Rider, I believe it's the name. Yeah, Basilisk Rider, and the
Hmm.
third one is, well, the one of the rarest cards you can get, but it's Ouroboros, and you can definitely see why. Those are definitely incredible cards. You have each card represents, like we mentioned, either 2 hard removals with Basilisk Rider, or Ouroboros, which is infinite value, and Cannon of the Dragons, which is 1 card 15/15 at a stat. So those 3 cards are insane.
I I've been I've been really liking how Sword drafts. I had mentioned that earlier. I feel like they get a lot of some really strong card. They have access to some really powerful cards. They have access to the Luminous Mage. They have access to uh Albert, and they have a lot of storm damage and such.
Have you seen what's the name of the card? The card that destroys the follower when you evolve her? That's a really strong
A-
card.
Axe
Yeah.
Destroyer. She's
Yeah,
really good.
she's very strong. She's one of my favorite swordcraft cards.
She's a bronze too. She's a 6/5.
You could see a lot of those cards. Like that's why I love Luminous Mage together with that card. I think it's just unbeatable. Like you save all the evos for it, and it's very strong. Um, I used to draft a lot of Sword and Shadow were my favorite cards to draft classes to draft. For 2 reasons, they were very strong. They were also easy to draft. It's very rare that you see 2 picks in 2 sides for Swordcraft that you hate the both sides. It's very rare. There's always something interesting to pick from each side or all the
Um,
sides.
un- unless you get something like an explosion or a
Hey,
well,
hey,
you've said explosion is a good card in Take Two. I have picked that card a couple times based off of recommendation, and it's not done too much for me.
you're playing Swordcraft though, right?
I've tried it in other
Okay.
crafts as well.
I've played Rat Drake actually. It won me a game today. So I mean, 3 AOE damage is it's good, but like I'm not saying Explosion is the strongest card, but it's just like if you don't try to be too greedy with it, you can even use it for a 1-for-1. As long as you kill something, it's If it's something big, if
Hmm.
it's like a 7-3, it's decent.
It's worth it then. But one card I don't like getting is Test the
Oh
Strength.
yes, they should ban that card actually.
It's just it can take a good deck and just ruin it.
Yeah, me and Jay Z, we talked about it on the World Grand Prix. Both of us had one pick where we had a test of strength on the other side, and we were like, "Come on, just please ban this card." We had to pick two mediocre cards, bad cards, just to not pick test of strength. Basically, it's like just give me anything else but test of strength. That one and Valkyrie Spear, but that one fortunately is out. They finally got rid of that one.
It's just unfortunate when you're offered like a bad class card and a Test of Strength with like a explosion and like another bad card.
Yeah, I mean that's like you draft what you can, right? You always try
Hmm.
to look for the best cards, but actually that's an interesting topic to talk about. The first a lot of question like one of the most asked questions that I get is uh how to not how to draft but what to pick, and you can make all the tier list decks. You can make all the tier lists, sorry, and then what you should pick, what you shouldn't pick. But the most important thing I believe is that when you have two sides to pick from, always look for the worst card. That is what I usually like to do. I see which of those four cards is the worst, and then I try to go away from it. So usually I like evaluate bad, bad, awful, awesome. If it's like normal, normal, bad, bad, awesome, I go for the normal, normal, because that bad card will lose you a game eventually, and the awesome card is gonna win you games. But since I go for five O's, I want to have as the most consistent deck, and I don't want to lose that one game and win four. I want to win them all. I don't want to lose a game because of card. So I always go for the more normal, average pick.
I find that when it comes to Take Two, one of the most important things is that you're just getting good stats for like what you're paying for. So a card that I've been enjoying a good amount is the 2 mana 2/3s, like the Axe Wielders. The 3 mana 2/3s, my apologies. That they both have a nice effect that can be used later on in the game, and they're also just all right stats for what you're paying for.
They're strong if you go first. They can kill their two drops, and two drops are very popular in Take Two. Almost everyone that is not a newbie player will always draft two drops. You always expect your two twos. So two threes are very strong, as Grimnir showed us for one entire expansion. Two threes are very valuable. One of my favorites are um, cards that have 3 health are very good for me in Take Two, because you can evolve them and not die to their two twos if they evolve them. Like the 4 health is a breaking point. I think in Take Two, the 5 health and 4 health are the biggest difference in my opinion as health goes in Take Two.
Well, I think a lot of the bigger removal, like your 3 mana deal fours, like a lot of your bigger removal ends at 4 damage.
There's also, like you mentioned, two threes have 4 attack, right? So the 5 health
Hmm.
on the Evo is very strong.
Your Geno, another example.
Yeah, there's a lot of like 3 damage is also a good breaking point. 3 to 4. Most removal spells have 3 to 4 damage. So if you can get a 4 health, a 1/4 is very strong. Like Blood Himp is quite good. She's always good enough to trade against other two drops, but she also kills the 2/1s, right? She kills the 2/1s.
Hmm.
There's a couple of 2/1s. That's why I do not like to draft 2/1s unless they cycle themselves, like Baphomet. Baphomet is always a good pick, which I think rotated
Hmm.
as well because he was no, was he Tempest or Rise?
I think I think he was
I think
Tempest.
so because he had Enhance. I think Enhance is Enhance Tempest or was it Rise?
Enhance came out, I think, in Rise
Okay,
of Bahamut, but I think it was a thing afterwards as well.
yeah, yeah. So like your 2/3s are very strong. Uh, Always know, another good advice I like to give is always know what to evo in your deck. So that requires you to know your deck inside and out. Because when you play when you're at the fourth game, you get the the pattern and then the way your deck plays, and you know what to do. But the first two games are important to know which cards should I evolve, which cards should I not evolve, like we mentioned, which trades, when do I trade, when do I go face. Most of the times trading is stronger, but sometimes you can actually go face and set up lethal.
It's good that while you're building your deck to keep looking at your deck and seeing if it's trying to be more of an aggressive deck or more of a mid-rangey deck or more of a late game deck.
Yeah. Also look for your curve. That is something. Well, we kind of do in constructed, but most times you can net deck a deck, so the curve will be built when you pick the deck, and you make one or two choices. But in Take Two, curve matters way more than in constructed. You want to have a good slope. You don't want to have a lot of two drops. You don't want to be top decking them, but you also don't want to have a lot of late game. The more cards, at least I see it that way. Most amount, I guess that's how you say it. The most amount that I like to have is twos and fours. That is my favorite ones to have because you can play double fours late game, which sometimes is
Hmm.
actually stronger than playing an 8 drop. Sometimes going wide is stronger than going tall. And twos, because you don't want to miss it too.
Yeah, two drops are really important to hit. Like if you just missing a two drop in the wrong matchup can put you far enough behind where it's hard to recover, especially in a format like Take Two.
Especially if you go first, right?
Hmm.
So you have initiative. If you miss the initiative, the board control, and the evolve value points of the game, I mean, it's very hard to come back.
And another thing about two drops is that if you have two of them on turn four, they double as four drop as a four drop,
Yeah,
sort
seen
of.
a lot of Lyrials. They're very strong
Hmm.
and annoying. Oh, Brambles. I almost lost today to a Brambles. Double Brambles actually. That's such an insane card.
Every time I've drafted forest, I haven't been offered a
Oh,
brambles. I've been kind of sad about that.
like Brambles, when you look at it, it's like one single card gives you like two twos, right? It because of the 2 1s, two 2 1s from the Brambles, and then he barraged it, and then it was. Let's not talk about that one. But we can talk about what's your favorite. So, what's your favorite game so far, and what's the story behind it?
My favorite game and the story behind it. Um, well, one that I liked a good amount. We ended up losing this one, but I had mentioned earlier. Last week or earlier in the week, we had a game where our opponent played a treasure map and got an Arthurian light, and we tried as hard as we could, but this Arthurian light eventually grinded us out of the game.
Oh, yeah. I have nightmares of that game. It had nine. Just so you have some context, you got 9 1 1 store followers. Oh my god. And we lost to it. The finishing blow was actually the 1 1.
I've been um I've been liking Fangblade Slayer, not Fangblade Slayer, Wolf Fang Swordsman. He's been
Which one is that?
he doubles. He's the 1 mana 1/1
Oh,
in sword,
I
and
know.
he gets enhanced 3 and gets Bane. He's nice because you can play him early on. He can beat down. He can trade into a 2/1 as well, and then later on he's a little bit better than a 1/1.
Yeah, I'm usually not a fan of 1 1s, but that one I can stand behind just because of the enhance. Like 1 1s are like quick blader. I see so many quick bladers on ladder, and I used to do this joke. Actually, Sponge Pedro he recognizes this joke. Whenever someone played
Hmm.
quick blader on me, I'm like, I win. I win because my opponent started with one less card in hand. Because when you think about it, unless you have a beat down, the perfect beat down, and your opponent misses the curve, if you have a normal like 2 3 4, you're gonna win that game. Because your opponent just played a card to deal 2 damage. It's like Angelic Snipe. Like he sniped your face. I mean, no, no, that's not good.
I I had a deck with two Wolfang Swordsmen and two Goblin Emperors, and Goblin Emperor triggers on Wolfang Swordsman even if he gets the Bane if you enhance him.
Yeah,
So that's
because it's
nice.
original, I believe, right? It's original cost.
Hmm.
That's a good combo. Oh yeah, I definitely Goblin Emperor is rising to my standards. I thought it was a weak card, but like the amount of times that I get a Goblin that trades into something and cleans it up is it has happened a lot. I think that there's an enhanced percentage to actually pull the goblin. I mean, I cannot confirm it, but it looks that way because I guess so many goblins.
I feel like I very rarely want the Goblin Leader though.
Yeah,
The Goblin Leader I feel like is the worst one out of
yeah, I
all of them.
think so. Princess is very valuable. She's a lot about bodies, and the last words, in fact, is can be game winning. Like 5 attack followers are very strong in Take Two. Like they finished the game in 4 attacks. We're not talking about constructive where decks can heal and ward. We're talking about Take Two, and most of the times that 5 attack will win you the game. Like all my dragon games so far have been won with Cannon of the Dragons. With the one dragon remaining, they force my opponent to spend evos, and the one that remains in the end is always is like finishing the games for me. I protect it till the end, and then it's like smorking down my opponent.
Yeah, I've seen some enhanced Hill Blindies do work this week.
That is that fits when you think about it. That card can fit in every single category we just talked about. She can recover the board state if she kills the followers, and she's also like a big body. She's like pseudo bomb, I guess, because that effect is disgusting. It forces your opponent to actually remove it. And at that point, if you don't have evos, she's quite annoying.
She's a strong on curve 5/5, and then she can just get better later on in the game.
Also, a very strong card, Scyther. That is that is so good.
Dragoon
Dragoon
Scyther?
Scyther. Yeah. The
Yeah.
dragon one, the one that summons a small dragon, the one that pings. That's very valuable.
Dragon Aficionado.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with that card. Except when I played against Brambles, that was not fun.
I don't know how to feel about Forest, if it's good or not. The times I've tried it, I've gotten like some nice aggressive decks, and then other times the decks just kind of fall flat on their face.
Uh, I think Forest used to be one of the strongest, but the strongest archetype I think it rotated. The strongest Forest archetype, from what I read and what I experienced, was the lock your opponent archetype. Do you know those cards? The ones that lock.
Oh, that's like the Forest Archelon.
Yeah, no, well, not that one, but the small ones were actually very strong. The one that you could, if you had an evolve follower in play, you could lock something. That one was quite good. It was the perfumer, I think was the name.
Oh, wasn't it like Dwarf
I think it was
Perfumer?
dwarf perfumer. I think that's the one, right? The one that locks your opponent from attacking.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that used to be a very strong card. I think it rotated now. So Forest now, I don't think there's a single lock card. That mechanic was very seen in Take Two. Frustrating to deal with,
It's a cool mechanic. We don't see it all too often.
especially in Take Two, because when like controlling the trades is one of the strongest aspects of Take Two. If you can keep controlling the trades throughout the entire game, you get the value trades, and you usually control the board. So locking your opponent from attacking will allow you to control the trades, especially if going second. So one of the favorite plays with that deck was I believe the Dwarf Perfumer was a 3/1 3 drop or 2 drop. No, I think it was a 2 drop. I don't remember, but
I think it was a two
it was
drop.
something like you play something, evolve something, and then play that one, and you kill the small follower. You basically value trade, and then the other one locks the strong follower, and that is very strong. Zenitra, I have that one in my deck. Yeah, have you tested that one? Did you get that one,
Um,
Zenitra?
I have never been offered a Zernitra this week.
Seal of approval for Makamaru Red. She's so goddamn strong.
I got the Phoenix Rider Ina. She's nice.
I've been giving a lot of those happy pigs. The one Beast Rider. I've never picked it, but I wonder if that's good because that has rush, right? Rush has to be good, but like rush with 2 attacks just doesn't feel strong enough for me.
She gets a stat bonus after she attacks, which is like it's kind of
Yeah,
pointless.
it's
Like
not what
thanks.
you. It's not what you want. Like, I mean, you're investing so much mana to kill like such a small body. She also doesn't have a lot of HP. I think she's 2/6, right? 2/6.
mm, 2.6 or
2.5,
2.5, one of
yeah.
those two.
I know it's not a lot of HP because I tried it a couple of times. It just didn't do much. It's just usually like just a 1-for-1. That's not where I want to be. I don't want to be 1-for-1ing. I'm a greedy player. I love card advantage.
So when you're playing Take Two, some of the more important things you're looking for is for your cards to have like relevant effects, right?
Yes.
So some of the more relevant effects that you're looking for are things like draw a card or ward or like deal 2 damage to something,
Yes.
something that can
That
remove
is my
something.
favorite. The reason why I love Shadowcraft, and it's my favorite Take Two class, is the removal. Like, there's so many removal options, and when you look at the followers, they themselves are removal. Like, you see cards like Mummy, insane, can deal 2 damage for just Necromancy, which you're not spending any resources to activate Necromancy. Just play the game. And then there's Zombie Party, which also makes bodies. There's Anubis. That's a card that's surprising me a lot. Like
Anubis is real
Anubis
strong.
kills the strongest. Like when you look at the 5/5 body, like this is kind of weak for 7. But when you kill like a 6/5 or a 6/3 with Anubis, you're like, this card is already paying off. I'm not even evolving for it. Like you can trade a small card in your hand for like a big body.
So a card I notice I get offered pretty you're gonna have like pretty often in your draft you're gonna have one or two awkward picks. And those awkward picks are gonna have something like um the the amulet we were talking about earlier, test the strength. It could have like a Mr. Full Moon.
No,
So how do you feel about Mr. Full Moon? I feel like Mr. Full Moon is the kind of card that I more often than I want to, I end up with one in my deck.
I have so Mr. Full Moon. I'm not gonna lie. I've had games where I won because of Mr. Full Moon. Uh Actually one of the first games I played in the new expansion was against Portalcraft. I didn't know the class too well, but I played against the Amethyst guy. I think it's Amethyst, the one that can attack twice. I didn't know he
Hmm.
could attack twice. I just played the Mr. Full Moon because I'm like, oh, this is a big enough body. Let's play the Mr. Full Moon. And then I noticed that he attacked twice. I'm like, oh, so Mr. Full Moon just saved my life, and I win because of that. But I've also lost games because I had to like play Full Moon against a two attack follower. And I mean, come on.
I had some Mr. Full Moon and Octo Bishop the other day,
Oh,
and this Octo Bishop was just it was an evolved Octo Bishop, and it was just beating me in like the whole game for 1 damage.
and you cannot remove because it's 6 health, right? They evolved one, I think.
It was such a pain in the butt to deal with.
No, now there's no like back then. Uh, I've had 2 games where I didn't play around Muhammad, and I queen. Actually, the same play happened. I play my queen like big tempo swing, and then he plays Muhammad. I'm like, what the heck, man? The next game I do the same thing, and he plays Muhammad. I'm like, god damn it! So the third game I have my queen. I'm like, I'm not gonna play around Muhammad. But then some little bird whispered me, you should play around Muhammad. You've learned your lesson. Third time's the charm. So I don't play my queen. I hold my Mr. Full Moon, and he plays Bahamut. I'm like, oh yes, I now I can win. But yeah,
Rewarded.
now there's no Bahamut, so I think Mr. Full Moon gets a lot worse because of that. There's not a lot of targets.
It can still hit things like Aegis. It's nice for things like
But
that.
that's the problem, though. I still think you lose. I've won a game where my Aegis was Mr. Full Moon, and I still won that game.
I've done that. I've been constructed before. I've never done that in Take Two.
Yeah, cause like the 1 damage is this is a 20 turn clock, I guess. But
It adds up.
yeah, it does. It also cleans up nice, trades nice. If you find a way to buff it, like sometimes you could Darkshot. You can Darkshot it. Sometimes I had Aegis and Darkshot in my decks. I've won games like that. My fastest Take Two win was turn 6 with a Darkshot actually.
That's pretty
Yeah,
hasty.
that was fast.
I had a turn 2 or turn 3 concede because I just went like Wolf Fang Swordsman. Yeah, Wolf Fang Swordsman. Wolf Fang Swordsman and Fang Blade Slayer. I get confused because they have such similar
Yeah,
names. But I went Wolf Fang Swordsman into some 2 drop into a 2/3. It was like into a 2/2 into a 2/3, and he just conceded.
yeah, I can see why. Like if you maybe didn't didn't have anything to play, just a 4 drop or something, yeah, you can definitely win out of those. Hello, Lex. What's up? S-
What's up?
so, oh, speaking of Havencraft, how do you feel about Havencraft?
So I haven't drafted too many Haven decks. I feel like when it works, it's pretty good with the ones that I've had. But I feel like it can be kind of hit or miss with if you draw your amulets and you draw your like countdown reducers at the right time.
Yeah, even like when you have lake your amulets on the late game, it's probably one of the worst feelings you can have because you're literally playing cards that have no impact. But if you get them on the early game, they're very strong. Pegasus and Arya were the most broken cards that I played against when played on curve. Because I'm like, oh come on, my opponent played a one play .53. Because they always have time to get that freaking thing, and Arya as well, and like dual tigers or Beastly Vow. I think Beastly Vow, the one that summons a tiger, the 2 play point.
Yeah, that's the two
That's
player
quite
point
annoying
4/4,
because when
right?
you think about it, it's 2 play points, right? It's getting a 4/4 for 2 play points. But
The veteran tamer also is pretty good.
yeah, I then I try to do that in my Aven games, and I don't get my amulets, and then I start top decking them, and I'm like, now I'm filling my board with amulets that have no impact. So that's why always having the option to have amulet reducing effects is strong, unless you don't see amulets. So do not draft amulet reducing effects unless you have already have amulets in your deck. Like we mentioned before, keep seeing, keep looking at your deck, see what you have, see what you can do. Also, the neutral synergies. Always count the amount of neutrals you have in your deck, and if it's not at least a third of your deck, so 10 cards are not neutral, do not pick a neutral synergy card. It's not gonna work most of the time. Like Hector, forget about it.
Yeah. I've been offered quite a few hectors. I've picked up a couple hectors.
How do you feel about that? Did it work?
It has never done the 3 damage yet.
Yeah, I've learned that because I was doing that as well. I'm like, oh, this card is so good, especially in the neutral blood era. It's like, oh, this card is so
Mhm.
insane. I'm gonna pick it so much fun, and then it's never worked. That's why I told you the other day that Hector is not gonna work, unfortunately. Like
Yeah, he's hard to get off.
3 cards is just having 3 cards in your hand when you play Hector is not easy sometimes, and being neutrals, it's even worse.
Yeah, because by turn 5 you could have tempo played out a lot of your cards in your hand already.
And he's a 4/4, so if you don't get the effect, it's miserable.
It's not the end of the world because the 4/4 with ward is still somewhat acceptable, but it's not super acceptable.
Yeah, I I like my ward cards. I like ward cards that are healthy. Healthy.
Hmm.
Ward and Bane. I love them being healthy.
Like 3/5 or three
Yeah.
six, kind of like
Like
that.
another speaking of Bane cards, we mentioned Suburb before, but there's also another very strong one. The one from Shadow, the 3/6 play point 3/6.
Ebon
Evan Reaper,
Reaper, I
thank
believe
you.
it's
He's
called.
a very healthy dude, which is insane. Has low attack, which is quite good. Like you have Bane, you don't care about attack, and he also can give like your skeletons or your zombies. He can give them Bane, which means they can kill like Lion Champion or Fangblade Slayer or I don't know, something big, something annoying.
So, what are some cards to watch out for? Cards that you don't want to like play into and just like, oops, I lost the game.
Uh,
Uh, Zeus comes to mind
yeah,
for me.
yeah. Lion Champion. Lion Champion is very popular, so always think about ways to deal with it on 6. Because it's a silver status. You're gonna see it. Every single run you do in Take 2, you're probably gonna see that card out of the 5 games.
Yeah, that or Holy Angel Aita. I see her a lot too.
Oh, yeah. That one. People still misplay with that card, which is weird to me now that we're so far ahead in the meta. So I still see people not transforming. That's the one that transforms to neutrals, right? I still see them not transforming the right one. Most people, most of the times they do. They transform the one they want to kill, the one that they're gonna kill. But sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you wanna transform the other one and actually kill the body with the normal attack. That way, there's no counterplay. Unless your opponent has removal in hand, it cannot attack into your Altaia.
It's a tricky card. I definitely see that one quite a bit though, and throughout my take two runs and throughout just when I'm drafting. I usually end up with like one in my deck every game or two, or every draft or two.
Yeah, there's also we mentioned Groove. The big neutrals, I like to call them the big trio of fives, is like the Altaia, the Groove, and the Albini. Like those three
Hmm.
5 drops are very interesting to draft. Knowing the neutral cards is very valuable rather than knowing oh this class is very strong, I can draft it. This class is blah blah blah. Actually, knowing the neutrals is 50% of the work because you're always gonna see neutrals in your drafts, right?
And knowing just what cards are common in your opponent's class.
We had a fun play against it was against Imari actually, the EU champion of the
Oh yeah,
qualifier, where we were talking in chat and I'm like, we should do this because you could like Sabrur. We evolve our Elta, so he cannot Sabrur. He needs to trade first, and he actually had a Sabrur, so he actually did exactly what we talked about. That was a fun thing to do. Because again, Sabrur, like we mentioned, is a bomb. Everyone knows it's a bomb, so expect to see Sabrurs when you play against Blood.
yeah, because that's just the kind of card people are looking to get. Same thing for like Catacombs out of Shadow.
Yeah, when they see that card, they are going to pick it. So, undying resentment is something that I've learned a lot of from experience to not allow my followers. That's why I mentioned 4 health and 5 health, big difference. If I have a way to make my follower have 5 health instead of 4, even if it's a value trade, I go for it and allow it to be 5. Eh, On the contrary, if I go for a value trade and my value trade puts my follower as a 4 health, I always think twice if I'm against Shadow, because the blood is as well. Like the 4 damage is very popular.
Yeah, it can just deal with so many different things, and you when used with each other, it can remove big minions too, big followers.
What about class identity? Do you feel that the core mechanics of each class have impact in Take Two?
Well, I think to like a lesser extent. So like for sword, you still want to play your I'm gonna hit my curve game plan. For forest, you want to like do like a similar thing where you hit your curve and you have some fairies hanging around your head in case you want to turn on some combos. But I think the class identity is much less of a thing since you are tending to draft much more of these neutral cards.
Yeah, there also some mechanics are quite hard to use, like the forest one. I see almost no practicability on it. Having to play a lot of cards before you activate something. It's not easy to do when everything single card in your hand is like 4 play points, 5 play points, 6 play points because you want the curve, right?
The best one of those cast a bunch of spells cards I've seen for forest is a Crimson Bow Elf
Mm-hmm.
because you're usually able to get two or three charges on that one.
Like spell boost is just it's out of this world. It's awkward, so awkward to play spell boost.
I drafted a rune deck today and it was just a disaster. I had like all these sigils that sometimes I could use, other times I couldn't use. And they were just taking up space on board. And some games would just I never got to find any of my sigil poppers. And it would have been better off just never playing any of the sigils because I was losing because I didn't have space on my board.
Yeah, yeah. Runecraft is looked at as the worst. I feel it's probably in a lot of people's mind the bottom
It
tier.
has so many ways it can go wrong when you're drafting it.
Yeah, like Daria, Ginger. I mean, those are cards you do not want to see. Like,
One card I did like to draft was Expel Soul.
oh, mhm.
Um, I just like to have one of those because it was for 7 mana. It draws a lot of cards, and it also can remove a big threat. I thought it was a nice card to have one of,
That
but I
is
wouldn't suggest drafting Rune for that card.
yeah,
I don't think it's
yeah.
worth it.
That is I've quite literally played that card in Take Two, and that's when I decided to add it to my Chimera deck in Constructed, because I saw, like you mentioned, I saw that value. But in constructed, you spell boost too much, so that card was just too clunky. But in Take Two, it's perfect. You usually spell boost it like once or twice, and it's perfect. It's like 7 play points, hard removal. I'm having a lot of fun with Lightning Blast. Like the way I've been dealing with Lion Champion is Lightning Blast. Even though it's not perfect, it's just a 1-for-1, the same amount of play points. It's you still deal with something that's really annoying to deal with sometimes.
I've been getting usually when I'm offered it, I pick up not always, but like about half the time, maybe a little more than half the time. I pick up Fall from Grace because that card is just it's nice flexible removal and it a 1/3 isn't that big a deal in Take Two.
I like that card too.
It's usually not the end of the world. You feel safe when you have one of those in your hand.
Yeah, I love drafting removal. Even if my deck is like full removal, as long as I have something a win condition, I guess. As long like removal is I just love the just having the option. When you think about it, like in games where board control matters so much, you need a way to be reactive. You can't because once your opponent dictates the trades, the only way you can catch up is removal. If he has a 6-2 or a 6-3, you need to evolve into it or Zombie Party and Dying Resentment. It is so valuable, and most of the times people don't pick on the value of removal just because it's so fast. It's just I play this and I kill that, and they don't recognize how valuable what they did actually was. If you don't have that, otherwise you have to trade something into it if you have an option to trade, or you have to evolve a weird evolve into something big. Like the back then, the ways I used to win, especially going first, was having removal for their first evo. It's a good tempo. You don't need to evolve. You just remove what they evolve, and you keep adding to the board.
Yeah, if you're like a slower deck, and you can just hold your evos, that's great in Take Two.
Even
If you can just stay at parity while holding your
even
evos.
faster decks, because that allows you to evolve phase, right? If he evolves something
Mm-hmm.
into my 2-drop, I can play a 2-drop zombie party and evolve face, right? Even if you're aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It quite literally is value and tempo in the same card. It's just the way you use it. Like I like the word you use, the flexibility of Fall from Grace, the flexibility of removal. When you're ahead, removal is fantastic. When you're behind, removal is okay. It allows you to come back into the game. So I really love. I'm very biased towards removal. I put a high priority on it.
So when you're drafting, what's your ideal type of deck to end up with by the time you're done with it?
My ideal type of deck is having at least one or two ways to finish the game, either through
Mm-hmm.
sheer amounts of value with cards like Expel Soul or Canyon of the Dragons or Israfel, and then I look for four to. I always try to maximize the amount of removal I have. Four, I feel very comfortable if I have 4 pieces of removal, and then just have a normal curve. Have a normal valuable curve, like 3 play point 2 3s, 2 play point 2 2s, or 1 4s. And then I always try to go away from 1 drops. I don't want to see 1 drops unless they're like cards like Blazing Breath or the Bane cards are strong. And
Mm-hmm.
then I like to see strong 4 play points cards that I love to evolve.
So I like to have decks that can go a bit longer with card advantage, but have like nice aggressive curves the whole way up.
So you dictate the tempo of the entire game, and you still have card
Mm-hmm.
advantage to back it up. Yeah, that feels very strong. It's probably the strongest archetype you can play is something like that. Uh, Probably my favorite archetypes to play is, like I mentioned, I love Shadow because Shadow can do this. Is the archetypes that can dictate tempo backed up with removal, but still have card advantage. Cards like Ektar, cards that like Zombie Party, like you steal tempo and you make bodies. Grave Desecration. I love cards like that. Cards that are very aggressive, like Grave Desecration is very aggressive. You get 2/2 storms that in a pinch you can just go face, right? Because you know you have that inevitability. But you can also play the value game with that same card. So I those are my favorite ways to play Zeus. Another very flexible card. You can slow down the game or you can speed it up.
So I got a question for you. Burly Axe Wielder. or Axe Fighter? Which is the better card?
Axe Fighter. X Fighter.
Axe Fighter. Now that's the 2/3 that enhances for 6 and gets +3/+3.
Mhm. I like having better stats rather than removing. I believe that one removes an amulet, right?
That one removes an amulet, yeah.
So I
I
like the one that gets more stats.
I find there aren't too many amulets in Take Two to remove.
Arturian Light.
That's a big one. You want to hit that one.
I'm kidding. Treasure Map. It's a card I've never drafted, but it's frustrating to play against. Like when I play it, I get so many Phoenix Roosts, but against me, it's always Grave Desecration. I don't
It's a
know.
whole
I
ways
don't know,
grave
man.
desecration.
It's like, what is it like?
Somebody a forest played a enchanted library on me today.
Oh my god, that's so silly, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like playing against Swordcraft that has so many tokens and they have Grave Desecration and Albert. Oh man, come on.
I like I like the flavor behind them getting a enchanted library off of a treasure map. Just like, oh,
Oh
they
no,
were looking on this treasure map and they found this ancient library. That's
and it's
awesome.
enchanted, and now it grants them power. Now the fairies are magical. Yay!
Hmm.
No,
Or it takes them to a blood-fed flower bed and heroes die.
actually, I love Treasure Map. Let's just take this second to appreciate the flavorful, because it's not competitive. It's not, oh, this is high skill card. The design of it. It's just I just love some flair in the game sometimes.
That card got spoiled, and Cisne told me he thought that was the strongest card in the expansion.
Because sometimes you have to think about, this is a game, right? This is also supposed to be fun. Sometimes I feel we as competitive players are too harsh on side games. Like we're like, no, tilting at the windmills is so broken because we're only looking at the high end of the spectrum, right? We're only looking at,
Hmm.
we want tie games, we want decisions to matter, but sometimes it's just fun to have flavorful cards that open up this weird combos to finish the game.
Hmm.
Like Treasure Map is, again, I it's frustrating to play against sometimes, but I've never lose a game to it, and I'm like, God, I wish Side Games didn't print this. Actually, no, on the contrary, I'm like, I'm glad Side Games printed this because it gave me a different experience, a different and new experience. That's what I look for when I play games. I want to see new things. I want to go to new places, explore new play, fight against new bosses, new character designs, new enemies. I just love that.
I want to know. I want to know where this map took us that we had to desecrate a grave.
And then now we get zombies. Are we like Michael Jackson? We just became Michael Jackson. We found the map to Michael Jackson's
Oh my
secret
goodness.
laboratory. We can now make zombies. Maybe Professor Taboos knows the answer, right? Is he's gonna save his daughter? Maybe Michael Jackson kidnapped his daughter. Oh boy.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
Twitch, please don't ban us. I'm sorry, Twitch. I'll save. I'm okay. So when you go on your daily life, do
Hmm.
you sometimes listen to Shadowverse quotes or not?
Do I sometimes listen to
No.
them?
Do you sometimes imagine some characters' quotes?
Yeah, and some of them happen to like there are some that obviously you like more than others.
So I sometimes I go. I'm walking on the street. I'm like, I will say my daughter comes to mind. So I'm like, why did I think about this? I'm like, oh, I got it. Commence experiment. Yeah.
My favorite is at the moment my favorite is Hector.
Hmm.
When you attack with him, he makes a sound.
Yeah, it's usually when I grind a lot. When I grinded a lot for Master was Neutral Blood. Played so many games. Ector was definitely like every time I played it, I'm like, on the
On the
warfield, a
warfields, a
shining
shining
helmet.
helmet
And now it was Daria. I played so much Daria. I'm like, with a bang and the boom.
with a bang and a boy.
I played way too much Daria. And the blade guy. What's the name of the blade gun?
Oh, atone with
Yeah,
your
Tone
lifeblood.
with your lifeblood.
I like that one a lot.
And
Mr. Full Moon. Mr. Full Moon's one of my favorites. I I'm vexed to the max. That's a good one.
I love Fida. I spammed a lot of Fida when Star Force came up. It was my favorite deck was Forest, Temple Forest, with Spring Green
I,
protection and Fida. I begin to you.
I I've been just going all over Discord, just typing in thank you so much just
She's so
everywhere.
cute. And Venus, every time I attack, let me love you. I always think about the song. Let me love you. Do 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 do. It always comes to mind. Anyways, we're going off track. So we've talked about Havencraft. Yeah, we talked about Havencraft, Bloodcraft, Swordcraft, Shadowcraft, Runecraft, Havencraft,
Talked a little about Forest.
Dragoncraft. Talk about a little bit about Forest. What about Neutralcraft? Is there any way to play Neutralcraft? I don't think so. Right?
Draft a lot of Israfils, draft a lot of Goblin leaders.
Mr. Zero from 0 to 10. How strong is Israfil? How many games did you win with Israfil?
Dude, every time I play an Israfil on 9, I win. I feel like I just haven't lost a game where I played an Israfil on 9.
Explain to me how you so death your Israfil. Oh, we didn't do that actually. We didn't need to do that. That's how strong she was.
There was one shadow deck that we had where this Israfil just always put in work. We were just so deathing our back every now and then. Oh, it was
We were
nice.
even like, no, let's not spend our Evo. We can always get our Israfil, and then we get it, and we get rewarded for that. So you got a 5-0 recently, right? Can you tell me more
Yeah,
about
I
that?
actually just had a 5-0. So, I was playing Blood. I had a nice aggressive curve. I don't think I had any one drops in my Blood deck, but I had two Serpent's Bites. I had two of the Blood, no, what's it called? Blood Drinkers
Oh,
brands.
that's so good. Yeah, the four
I had
damage,
one
man.
or
The
two
four damage
Scarlets.
is so strong.
Oh, I got him the last game, or it was either the last game or the second to last game of the 5-0. I got to go, Bandersnatch into my Spawn of the Abyss. I had one
Oh
Spawn of the
my
Abyss.
god, that's disgusting.
And that was the only time I got to play the Spawn of the Abyss the whole time. The whole time. It was the only time I drew it.
Oh my god, but that's the thing though. Like Spawn wins you so many games. It's like Bahamut. It just wins you so many games, and but it comes earlier than Bahamut.
Oh, I had a Steno in that deck,
Oh,
and that Steno put in work.
disgusting.
Um, yeah. The other time I played the Bandersnatch to pull something, it pulled a Mr. Full Moon.
I am vexed to the max.
So one time it pulls the Spawn of the Abyss, the other times it pulls the Mr. Full Moon. So it's not that broken.
You need pulling Zeus. Oh boy, I've had that before. I've actually did that more times in Take Two than Constructed. Even when it was a thing in Constructed to play your Snatch and Zeus. I was gonna ask you something, but I forgot. Nah, I just forgot. That the first take 5-0 you did?
That was the second 5-0 I've had.
What do you
So
remember the first
I've
one?
got the first one I had was a while ago. It was a Sword 5-0 that I had.
I believe most of my 5-0s are Shadowcraft. In Darkness Evolve, I used to call Shadowcraft uh, was the Sharon deck. Is that how you pronounce the name Sharon or Karen?
Yeah, I think it's
Sharon.
Sharon or Sharon,
Yeah,
one of those two.
like
I'm
I'd
not
call
sure.
it Sharon Craft. My objective was to draft every single shadow making card and then play Sharon and Evolver. Quite literally,
That's
the
the
winning play.
that's the one that summons like a zombie or something like that, right?
No, a leech, a 4/4. Necro
Oh,
6, yeah,
wow.
she's a 5 play point. That's why she's very hard to activate on curve. But if you do, oh boy, she's a 5 play point, 6 necromancy, summon a leech when you evolve. And she gets full stats when she evolves, I think. Yeah, I think she gets full stats. Yeah, she was like Sybil, 4/5, gets to be a 6/7 and a 4/4. Oh boy,
That's pretty
yeah.
good. That's an interesting floral fencer.
Yeah, and so my favorite story was I was playing against I believe it was. Oh, it was Prince Catacombs. Yeah. No, it was Satan. Yeah, it was Satan, and I was there to
Hmm.
Damnation or the Silent Rider, and I'm like, please have the 1313. But I didn't have an answer to the 1313, so I'm like, please, please, please play the 1313. He plays the 1313. I top deck the two play point card, the spell card from Shadow that revives one of the highest cost followers you play. I don't know the
Hmm.
name, don't remember the name. I'm like, oh come on, why did I top deck that? And I just slammed that, and I get a Pluto because I had played a Pluto before. So my Pluto kills the 1313, and I end up winning the game because he had 12 health, and
Oh,
next turn I attack with the Pluto. That was an insane game. I streamed that game
nice.
actually.
Cards that remove something while putting a follower on board are premium in
Yeah,
Take
I
Two.
miss Pluto. I love Pluto. Got that. That was a card that was never seen. Oh, Lord of the Flies. Those cards were never seen in constructed, and they were so good in Take Two.
I saw once there was some weird Deathly Tyrant Pluto deck, like a video of it. That was cool, but it wasn't particularly great.
Another card that was so cool in Take Two, Bloody Mary. It was so cool. Like nowadays, I feel like Vengeance is not as hard to deal with as before, but back then, you never wanted to put your opponent in Vengeance because they could do some crazy things. There are cards that kill your stuff if you're in Vengeance, like cards that if you're in Vengeance destroy a follower, basically cards like that, or gain an evil point, or heal 10, like or get a Bane drain with Righteous Devil. Like now you can just like I don't care, you can put him in Vengeance.
I've got one last thought, one last like point, and that's I think when it comes to Take Two, some of the cards that are really important to get are cards that just have enhance on them, just things that are kind of modal. They have dual purposes.
I agree. Flexibility is the key to success. That's a quote actually from Professor Layton. I don't know why I say that, but I don't care. Yeah, but flexibility is opening up options or different game plans is just as strong. Even in constructed, there's a lot of cards that define a meta because of enhance cards like Grimnir, Ekchar, uh, Aisha, Albert. So having cards
Lancer of the Tempest is pretty good.
cards that have effects based on the because they're always good. If you top deck them, you don't feel as bad. Right? I actually love enhance. I believe it's the strongest mechanic in the game, and it's my favorite because it just gives me options.
Well, it's very similar to another mechanic in Magic that was quite popular, Kicker.
Yeah. There's also the dual cards. Do you remember those? The ones that have like a red side and a green side in the same card, and you can pay different mana costs for different effects.
These are in
Yeah,
Magic.
magic cards like Fire
Yeah,
Ice. There was a card called Fire Ice.
yeah.
You could play both cards. Actually, that card was played in a full mono blue deck, even though it had a fire side just for the blue side. I found that quite cool.
Yeah, just because of ice. Because ice was like if it tapped something down or
Yeah, I
something
think
like
so.
that. I think.
Fire dealt damage. Probably dealt damage. Those cards are cool. I think you could also pay all the mana costs for it, but I'm not sure.
Hmm.
You could probably do that. So again, yeah, just flexibility, adding flexibility to it.
So I think we hit a lot of the topics to cover for today as far as Take Two goes. Is there anything you can think of that we missed?
Uh, I don't think so. Well, chat, if you want to make any last questions, this will be probably the last time we talk about Take Two. I don't think there'll be. This is the only round I believe Take Two. So if you have any questions, this is your last chance. Speak now or
Yeah,
forever be whatever it is.
we'll we'll probably have a podcast about Take Two sometime down the line, but we're doing this one mainly because NGE is this weekend. This weekend we have NGE Take Two.
I wanna quickly shout out Take Two. Shout out Take Two, my boy Take Two. Do not disregard Take Two, because I see a lot of people. I see your comments. I read them. Take Two is not skilled. Take Two is luck. We're gonna see high roll. We're gonna see coin flips. Come on, do not disregard Take Two. It doesn't deserve your comments.
I I really enjoy the Take Two format. It's really a shame how little I play it because it's a fun format.
I'll tell you what, if you want to learn the game, quite literally learn every single card of the game, even the names of the cards, play Take Two.
Yeah, you need to know what you can come around or come against in Take Two. Anything's possible in the format.
That is how I build my collect. That's why I respect Take Two a lot, because that was literally why that is was how I got to this point. Was thanks to Take Two, so I will always respect it. Even though I've been like 3 months, I haven't played Take Two in like 3 months, or sometimes I stayed like 4 months without playing Take Two. But I still respect it. I still regard it as a cool format. I still have it close to my heart. I still always big props, my bro, my broski, my brother. Take Two.
All right. So it doesn't seem like Twitch chat has any questions today. So I guess we can call it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for watching. Good luck this weekend. Hope I see you on the Rift. Wait, it's not the Rift. What is Shadowverse? The Nexus?
Um, it's, I don't think it is the Nexus, but we'll see you guys on the Nexus.
We'll see you guys on the Nexus. Bye bye. Always. Add everything Yellow Sky does. Join our tournaments. We had an unlimited tournament. That was a lot of fun. I saw the finals the next day. It was fun. It was interesting to see Roach back at it. How fun was it? Quick,
It was a cool format to watch.
was it cool to see
And
Roach back again?
it was so funny to watch Mysterian knowledge get restricted to limited mid tournament.
So yeah, just follow Hallowed Sky, follow Mr. Zero. We always try to do tournaments. We participate in tournaments. Cheer for everyone from Hallowed Sky, Mr. Pancake, Dominus, Teji, Zero, Keishi, Jackie, Dominus. I named Dominus. It deserves to shout it. So everyone, Lakewells. Thank you all for everything you do.
Yeah, and we will see you guys next week with another episode.
Peace.
See ya.
See ya.